book, but let me try. Unless some of you have my notes. Did someone download my book? No. Huh? Is it here? I left my book in the thing. It's okay. Anyway, the audience is shrinking, disappear, right? Okay. You are all first year students or second year students? Huh? First year. All of you. Are you able to follow? Huh? I was told that it will be the second year students who will be coming here. First year you may have trouble with vector spaces, no? Or no? Huh? Do you know theory of vector spaces, complex vector spaces? You know it, okay? Okay. Because this was meant for supplementing Rajesh's course. Okay? That I thought was a second year course. So, okay. That's okay, but you can ask me questions, okay, and stop me because I did not know. It is not possible to reduce it to the teaching of vector spaces. That is too much. Okay? I will never get it there. So, last time I think I did what is meant by simple groups. Okay? I do remember, but what I have to say. Some more examples. I am looking at example. Now, the group, this is a very important group, SL2C. The notation always is S means determinant is 1, okay. L means it is a linear group, no further restriction, in 2 dimensions over with complex coefficients. If the entries in the matrix are complex. So, bears this same relation, okay, to the Lorentz group, okay, which I think I denoted like this. You disappeared last time, right? Were you here yesterday? You are not here. There is a course of attrition. You are a first year student or a second year student? First year. Are you able to follow? Huh? Your name, you told me your name, I think. Sorry? So, all of you are first year students except for some postdocs here. So, and you are okay, you are very advanced. So, this is going to be a problem. So, I do not know how to solve it except that you can stop me and ask questions, and Jean is there to help. So, okay. So this has the same relation to this as this SU2 to SO3. I will show this later, but for us the important thing is that SL2C is not simple. Just like SU2, because this H, this Z2 consisting of 1, 2 cross 2, minus 1, 2 cross 2 is an invariant subgroup. Okay. So, I give this example, we will see that it is this group which plays the role of the Lorentz group when you go into quantum theory. Okay. So, we will come to this group later, but now I want to give one more definition. What is an abelian group? Well, it is rather simple. A group is abelian G is abelian if G alpha G beta is G beta G alpha or G alpha beta in the group. So, an abelian group means the elements commute. There are plenty of examples. For example, Z2 is abelian trivially. Right. Likewise, Zn, n groups are unity, is abelian, quite obvious. But if you look at two-dimensional rotations, so this consists of cos theta, sin theta, minus sin theta cos theta, call this r of theta. So, it is just rotations in a plane. Here the group law is r of theta 1, r of theta 2 is r of theta 1 plus theta 2. The angles add, so clearly they commute. So that this SO2 is abelian. We saw other examples, 4-dimensional translations are abelian. P4 is abelian. Four-dimensional translations form an abelian group, which is of importance in physics. Now, definition: a group is semi-simple if it has no abelian invariant subgroup. So, the group is simple if it has no invariant subgroup at all. It is semi-simple if it has no abelian invariant subgroup. Okay. So, for example, SU2 say SL2C or even SO2 T4 not semi-simple, right? Here the invariant subgroup is abelian in all these cases. In SO2 you take any subgroup consisting of rational rotations. Okay. For example, SO2, so anything like this, okay. This group here, for example, R of 2 pi n over k, okay, n equal to 1, 0 up to k minus 1. Okay. This is a subgroup of SO2 I am rotating by angles 2 pi over k, where k is an integer. So it is a finite subgroup of SO2, and they commute because SO2 itself commutes. So there are lots of discrete subgroups of SO2, okay, which are invariant because the whole group is abelian. Okay. So SO2 is not semi-simple. Okay. I do not know, well, this structure plays an important role when we go into Lie groups, continuous groups, okay. But I do not know why it is so important in the discrete case, in the finite group case. Okay.
Your definition, do you want this to be a proper abelian subgroup?
Yeah, proper. Yeah, sure. That is, she is saying that it should be actually, no, should not be the whole group. Okay. Besides the identity and the group itself. Okay. Of course, G is not abelian means it will not be, okay. But you can always choose identity and say it is a abelian subgroup. Okay.
But by this definition, I mean, I'm a little bit perplexed because I've never seen this definition of semi-simplicity. By your definition of semi-simplicity, if I take a cyclic group of prime order,
It is
then it is semi-simple.
in this case I would say yes. Okay. In this definition I would say yes, because the whole thing, yeah. Okay. But it plays no role in the analysis I am going to develop. So I do not know what the significance of this definition is for finite groups, except that you can say using it something about the kind of representations you get. Okay.
So what about SU3 or SU9?
They are not semi-simple because they have the center, namely I told you nth roots of unity are sitting inside it. So it is, those are abelian invariant subgroups. So SUN is not semi-simple. Okay. Now I come from the point of view of physics, the most fundamental structure of groups, okay, namely a representation of a group. This is by far the most important concept, okay, for a physicist. So what is it? Okay. A representation let me call it pi of a group. This is one way to say it. G is a homomorphism from G to linear operators on a vector space call it V. Okay. So V will be a complex vector space unless we state otherwise. For us, unless I state otherwise, because in quantum mechanics real vector space plays very minor, very marginal role. Hilbert's quantum mechanics is built on complex numbers. Okay. It is very difficult and very awkward to work with reals for in quantum mechanics. So for us D will be a complex vector space, and the property of pi says pi of G is some matrix or a linear operator on V. Okay. So pi of G is acting on V, okay, and pi of G1, pi of G2 is pi of G1, G2. because it is a representation, right? And pi is a linear operator which may, okay, we will consider pi of g, okay, either as a linear operator or its matrix in some basis. Okay. I won't make a distinction between these because you can always write the linear operator as a matrix. Okay. That is clear, no? So this pi, so the only difference between a standard homomorphism between groups is these pi g's are a group of linear operators. If you want, these things are a group of linear operators which are acting on V. Okay. V is called the, okay, I will give examples. Okay. Well, we can also regard this collection of these operators as a representation. All these different operators are as a map, okay, whichever you like. Okay. The representation is faithful. Okay. If pi is a if pi is an isomorphism, so it is 1 to 1. Okay, we say that the representation is faithful. Is said to be. Okay. So,
I think here you don't want, you want to say it's just subjective, you don't want to insist on subjectivity.
huh?
Here in this definition, I don't think you want to insist on subjectivity, I think you just want objectivity.
Yeah, it is subject, I mean whatever the image is, it will not be all linear operators.
Yeah, but as you've written it, implies that it's all operator, because you're saying isomorphism.
Isomorphism onto the image. Okay. That is one-to-one mapping into the linear operators. So, yeah.
For matrix groups, can you say the group itself is a representation of the group?
Yes. Okay. So, indeed, that is correct. Okay. So let us look at examples. Okay. One, what you said, okay, the 2 by 2 matrices of SU2. So you can present SU2 as an abstract group from giving some rules of multiplication. Okay. But we are starting with the concrete 2 by 2 matrices is itself a representation. Okay, on 2-dimensional complex vector space. Okay. So it is already a representation. Likewise, 2, this rotation matrix is SO3, okay, regarded as 3 cross 3 matrices, 3 by 3 real orthogonal matrices, is a representation of SU2, right. of SU2. It is not faithful. Why? Exactly. Plus minus 1 goes to, okay. So it is not a faithful representation, but it is a representation. Then SO3, this matrix is a faithful representation, but these 3 cross 3 matrices form a faithful representation of SO3, because there is a self representation, it is a defining representation. Okay. Now, I will give you more examples. Let me state a result. Okay. Suppose G is simple. So it has no invariant subgroup. Then all its representations except the trivial one where, what is the trivial one? You send all of the group into some unit matrix. Okay. So phi sends all G to some unit matrix are faithful. This is an interesting theorem. Can you see the proof? The proof is in the definition. The data that is given is phi is an homomorphism, the representation is a homomorphism, and G is given to be simple. Sorry?
Then it has to be an isomorphism.
It has to be an isomorphism. So, unless the whole group is going to some, so that is the idea. This result is used, by the way, if you read Wigner, where he analyzes symmetries, this result comes into play. Okay. But it is a very obvious, almost obvious result. If you are familiar with rotation matrices, have you ever done angular momentum theory? If you have done angular momentum, you have done. How come you are so advanced? Where are you from? BITS Pilani, all of you. Huh?
I'm from PhD, Coimbatore.
From where?
PhD.
Here, Coimbatore. I see. Okay, I will just say the result 4. I will not. Here is. I will give a list. SU2 has irreducible representations labeled by J, normally is written as J, and the J is can take values 0, 1/2, 1. So these are, J is angular momentum. Physical meaning of J is J h bar is angular momentum. I don't put h bar anyway. H bar is unimportant. So, there are infinitely many irreducible representations. Well, I have not told you what is irreducible. Representations of SU2. Okay. These are all SU2. It happens that, so this pi g, okay, for j, okay, is written normally as dj. This is a rotation matrix. This is 2j plus 1 cross 2j plus 1, what we call as rotation matrix. Okay. You will find any book on angular momentum theory discussing these matrices with loving care, because they are very important, okay, if you do any calculation, okay, in nuclear physics or atomic physics and so on. These are very important. Okay. These are labeled by two indices. Okay. dj is a matrix, okay. It is a matrix, okay. Is dj some two indices, is normally labeled like this. So, G is an element of SU2 and are what are called magnetic quantity numbers. What is important for me is that for j belonging to half integral values, okay, these are faithful representations of SU2. Okay. But they are not representations of SO3, okay, but not representations of SO3. That is because in all these things 2 pi rotation is -1. So, these are not even represented, but if j is integral, that is j belongs to 0, 1, etc. They are what is it, unfaithful representations of SO3. Unfaithful of SU2 and faithful ones of SO3. So, these are integral angular momentum. So, the 2 pi rotation and all these things, so write the 2 pi rotation matrix here, say the -1 here. So, here, so what happens is that in these cases dj of -1 is a matrix -1 of dimension 2j plus 1 by 2j plus 1. Okay. In this case dj of -1 is +1. Okay. So, now let me give some more examples. Okay. Idea 3, 5. This is an interesting example. Okay. Translations on a real line. Okay. The way you define a translation, so this consists of some TA. Okay. How do you define it? TA acting on x is x plus a. That is how you define it. You translate it by the amount A. but this is not even a linear operator. Notice that. So why is it TA here is not a linear operator? Why? On R. This is not a linear operator. Why?
There is no matrix limitation.
Yeah, but it's not linear because it doesn't leave the origin fixed. Okay, that's the first thing. I mean, if it is linear, lambda x must go into lambda times the action. No? So here I am translating. No? So it is not a linear operator. But does it have linear representations? Okay. The answer is okay. I take TA. If you want, I can write the pi here. And I will give you a representation which is 1A01 triangular matrix. So this is my represent, call it some TA, is a representation, is a two-dimensional representation. Yes, who are saying that? Yeah, yes, yes. Here also you can, by doing this, yes you can, because you write this as a ratio, right? Think of x as x1 over x2 and multiply by x2, you get this representation. So Poincare group is acting on 4, not Poincare, that is true, but it's the translation part that gives you trouble, no?
Yes, sir. So for the translation part, you instead of having one 4 by 4 matrix, have a 5 by 5 matrix, append the translating on
Yes.
the left side.
You can do that. It's the same trick.
Why do they say
Yeah.
that the Poincare matrix has only an infinite dimensional representation?
No, no, no. That is different. Okay. If you take, for example, translations, I will tell you. The translations do not form. It is not a this business of compactness comes. It's not a compact group. That is, there are elements in translation. Think of basically these translations. This TA can translate by arbitrary amounts. Okay, can become huge. Okay. So if you can take, if you think of neighboring, I had to talk about topology, but it is fairly clear that how do I say this? If I say that the neighboring elements of TA are given by neighboring elements of A, okay, it's clear that there are sequences in TA go on growing without any limit. Okay. So I can translate a point to all the way to infinity. Okay. Right, from here you can see that. Right. So this group is not compact. Okay. It's not compact, it goes on and on. It's unlike a rotation. Rotation on a circle. Okay. Rotation on a circle is quite different. I will come to. So when you make a unitary representation, okay. So let me finish this statement. So TATB is 1A01, 1B01, right? So you can see that this is 1, how do we go? I should get this is 1, this is I should get A plus B here. Yeah, I get A plus B here, 0 1, right? A, if I multiply A plus B, right? So this is T of A plus B. Right? So this is a representation, but it is a peculiar representation, it is upper triangular. We will come back to this representation later, but if you had learned a little bit about matrices, this matrix cannot be diagonalized. You know, this is not a Hermitian matrix, nor is it unitary. It is in what they call this a Jordan canonical form already. You cannot reduce it further. Okay. cannot be diagonalized. So, but this is a representation of the translations. Okay. Now, however, let me show you, and I will come to your question. I will give you another representation, which is very physically very interesting. Okay. Of the same group. Okay. So, consider next. Okay. What I will do is functions, let us say smooth functions, okay, f on, let us say real line, such that, let me say that it is like wave function, let me take wave function psi, such that the scalar product, I am sure that you are doing quantum mechanics, is infinity. Okay. So, like a quantum mechanical wave function. Okay. These things, this is the quantum mechanical space of wave functions. This forms a clearly vector space. This is in fact, a Hilbert space, but modulo technical things which we do not bother. So, it is a vector space. I can add functions. Okay. So, addition is psi 1 plus psi 2. So, this element in the Hilbert space H, by definition at x, is obtained by adding the values. Okay. So, I can add the functions. These are functions. Now, set, let us write, let me call UA psi, let me define a representation of x as psi of x plus a. Okay. I just translate it. So, this thing A to UA is a representation of translations, right? Because if I UA UB, okay, of my original group, which I called of the translation group, I think T1, okay. Okay. This is acting in the space of wave functions in infinite dimensions. This will answer your question also. Now, this representation is very interesting because if I do Fourier transform, okay, I can write psi of x as some dk phi of k exponential ikx right, and you will see that all that I am doing then okay, u of a sends exponential ikx to exponential ika exponential ikx. Okay. So, you know this operator. What is this operator UA? It is a finite translation coming from momentum. In quantum mechanics, if you take the momentum operator and exponentiate, this is what it does. Now, these things are acting in a one dimensional vector space. Right. This plane wave for a given k is multiplied by a phase. So, it is acting on a one dimensional vector space, and these are unitary matrices. So, these are unitary. In fact, it leaves the scalar product invariant. I will come back to that. So, your question is the following, the problem is the following. If G, I will tell you, I will write the statement, if G is not compact, is non-compact, so these groups, their translations, a Poincare group, for example, Poincare group, Lorentz group comes by in terms of 4 by 4 matrices, and you can tell when two elements of the Lorentz group are near to each other. Okay? And since I can go on making Lorentz transformations with velocity increasing arbitrarily, that group is not compact. There are elements in the Lorentz group whose entries are arbitrarily large. Likewise, here there are entries here where A is arbitrarily large, right. So, even yeah.
The Lorentz group for V, we have an upper limit at C.
No, V velocity no, because you get, it is not V, you get 1 over square root of 1 minus V squared over C squared in the entries of the matrix. Okay. So, when V goes to C, these things blow up, or you can write hyperbolic angles cosh in shin. Okay. So, in 1 plus 1 it looks like cos theta shin theta, right. I think it is shin theta cos theta.
So the Lorentz group is not compact.
It is not compact. Okay. So, but if I take a unitary representation in finite dimensions, so you take any group of unitary matrices in finite dimensions, there is a theorem that they are always compact. Okay. So, you cannot somebody said, who is the guy who asked about homeomorphism yesterday? It was not you.
He was sitting here. Not you.
You cannot map this non-compact space in a maintaining in a one-to-one onto way, one-to-one way maintaining the topology continuous way into a compact space. That is not possible. It's like mapping a sphere into a plane. For example, stereographic projection maps a sphere into a plane, but there is something you are doing funny. You are taking the north pole to infinity, right? You are removing the north pole. So, you are destroying the topology of the space by trying to do that. Okay. So, if you try to find a unitary faithful representation of a non-compact group, which is finite dimensional, you will fail. Unitary, faithful, continuous, you have to maintain. So, all these non-compact groups have infinite dimensional unitary representations.
The 5-dimensional representation for the Poincare group won't be unitary or
No, it is not. Okay. Now, I will tell you somehow the what is it, Pidur Pidamaha, that is it. The representation which is the father of all is the origin of all these representations in some way, and it is called the regular representation. Somehow this underlies, for a physics point of view, certainly it underlies treatment of all finite groups, for example, permutation group, but even in the infinite dimensional case, somehow this is there, this is all the time in the background, and it is defined in a very simple way. So, what do you do? You are given the group G, given the group G with elements G. Okay. First, I will construct a vector space. Construct the following vector space. The following complex vector space. I don't know what to call it, okay, of functions C or G, okay, of functions on G. So, f is Cg means f of G is a complex number. Okay. If I want to get fuzzy, I have to talk about continuity and so on, but never mind. Now, this is a vector space. The addition, okay, is pointwise, what they call pointwise. What do I mean by pointwise? Pointwise addition, you know what I mean. I had to tell what is, say, f1 plus f2 for two functions. Pointwise means I just take the, I have to tell what this sum is, I have to give the value of the sum at every point. Okay. So, this function is defined by, I have to give the function, right. So, I have to tell you what this is, f1 plus f2g. What will it be? It is a pointwise addition. You add the target, what you get out. So, it is f1g plus f2g. This is your complex vector space, you keep it. Now, I will define two representations. Okay. One is called the left regular representation, the other is called the right regular representation. Okay. You can always do this. So, let me look at left regular representation. So, for G in G, let me call it, so let us call it H in G. I assign a linear operator, we define, okay, a linear operator, let me call it TL of H. L denotes left, okay, but where is it acting? On CG, on, on this. I don't know why I put bar here, let me call it CG. So, I am going to define this linear operator on these functions, okay, by, so TL of H actually on an F. So, F is going to this thing. This is a new function. So, I have to give the value of this function at a point. Okay. So, I will set TL of H F at a point G. If I give you the value, the function is fixed. So, it is defined by saying f of H inverse G. Okay. This inverse is important, otherwise you will get some funny properties, undesirable properties of this TL. Okay. I have to show that this is a representation. So, you may ask, is it true that TL of H1, TL of H2? You may ask, is this equal to TL of H1, H2? Let us check. I multiply TL of H1, TL of H2 f at the point G now this is a function, call it if you like f prime. So on this function I am applying TL of H1. So this is equal to f prime at the point H1 inverse G. This is where every beginner makes, I don't make a mistake because I have been doing this for years, but everybody else will make the mistake as a beginner. So we will apply H2 first. That is wrong because this is a function on which this is a, so this is one function I am applying this and evaluating the G, right. So it is f prime at this point, but f prime is this. So this is equal to f of H2 inverse H1 inverse G. Right. But this is f of H1 H2 inverse G, right. So this is TL of H1 H2 f at the point G. So okay, I think just put a question mark, okay, because you can come, this is what I wanted to prove. Okay. This is called the left regular representation. There is also a right regular representation. They are somehow okay. Okay. So here G goes to some TR of G. Yeah, I wrote it as TRH goes to TR of H. The carrier space is the same, it acts on the same things, and the definition is TR of H some function f G. Now this will right, so the name itself suggests what I am going to do. This is f of GH. So this implies TR of H1, TR of H2, f at the point G. Again, take care of the things. This is my new function I am applying here. So this is TR of H2f, right, acting on GH1. There was a better chalk yesterday, and this is better. Okay. So now I apply again. So it is f of G H1 H2. So this is TR of H1 H2 f at the point G as we want. Okay. So I have, without any trouble, I have got two representations valid for any group, and it will turn out that for a large class of groups, in some very clear way, we can get all possible representations from these two. Okay. But before I do that, let me show something else. Suppose G is finite. So suppose G is a finite group. Then we can put a scalar product on CG, what will I do? I am not always using the same notation, but never mind. These are functions. So, I will say the scalar product is alpha beta. So, what will I do? I simply sum over G of alpha bar of G beta of G. It is a finite sum, everything exists, no problem. Okay. Now, if I apply TL alpha alpha, say TL of H alpha, TL of H beta, let me evaluate this. What will this be? This will be summation G. Here I will get, because of this TL, I will get alpha bar of H inverse G at beta of H inverse G. Yes, so I just, here I will get TL alpha at G, which is this. What is this? This right hand side. I am summing over G, the H will go away. Why? Because the H is simply permuting the group elements. Okay? So, I am counting the group elements, instead of saying what is one will become H inverse and so on. No? I am just permuting the group elements. So, this is alpha beta. Yes. What does it mean? So, this is equal to this. So, what does it mean? This means that TLH is unitary, right? These matrices TLH are unitary matrices, unitary operators. So, this representation is unitary, that is H to TLH is what is a unitary representation. This is a definition. These are the kind of representations of greatest importance in quantum theory, because they conserve probabilities. So, if alpha beta is scalar product of two wave functions, this says that the action of this group, in this case finite, preserves the scalar products. So, they preserve the probabilities. Similarly, for this case, TR gives a unitary representation. TL of H1 is always sort of obvious, because in this case this acts on the left, the other one acts on the other side. So, which way I do it does not matter. So, these are two commuting representations, both are unitary. Okay. This result, which is by the way, this activity here, this thing here we will come across later, is invariant, is this, let me call it integration. Within quotes on G. Invariant means the group actions, it is compatible with the group actions. If I add to the group the sum, the Jacobian, in this case it is sum, but we will see similar things happening with rotation group. It is like d cos theta d phi on a sphere. Okay. So, this existence of this object, this kind of integration is extremely important and does not happen for all cases, and it plays a crucial role here. Now, I will close today by remarking that this simple result, somehow it looks really simple, okay, was the starting point of a wide ranging investigation. From what I know, it starts with Naimark. He was able to generalize this starting from groups to much more general structures, and now it has become to play a very fundamental role in quantum theory, okay, especially in statistical mechanics. So it is called, you can see the, I will give you a reference, it is quite beautiful stuff, okay, and physically very important, what is called Tomita-Takesaki theory. And you will find this in book of Haag, local quantum field theory, local quantum physics. It is at this stage of your development, maybe it is good to browse. Yeah. This guy Tomita is very interesting history, discovered the existence of these two things, okay, left and right representations in a much more general context of algebras, okay, much more general context, and going from left to right corresponds in our physics language to charge conjugation, changing particles to antiparticles basically. He discovered it, but wrote the whole thing in Japanese, okay, and nobody knew about it until Takesaki translated it and thereby gained his fame and a professorship somewhere in California. Okay. So this thing here over a course of time has come to play especially in statistical mechanics and discussion of phase transitions, a very crucial role, and nowadays it is also a quantum discussion of quantum field theory, for example proof of spin and statistics theorem, okay, or black hole entropy. Some of you might have heard about black holes having a thermal spectrum and an entropy, okay. The one approach to this, which is quite beautiful, is using this activity, okay. But the analysis is not completely easy, okay. I mean, you have to, if you forget about epsilons and deltas and theorems and lemmas, you can understand it, but you need some familiarity with the language, okay. Then the idea becomes clear how these things are getting generalized, okay. So I want to tell you that this is a starting point of a whole line of development, which is even now, even last week I saw papers on this, okay, in field theory, black hole physics papers, okay. So this is quite important. So next time I will prove Schu's lemma. I mean, I have to prove some more things like reducibility and irreducibility, show you examples. What I mean, you need to know how to take apart representation. If you give me one representation, what are the building blocks of that representation? So I will do that. Then I will prove this basic theorem of Schu's lemma, and again I do not know why it is called lemma, because it dominates the whole subject. In some, it is very simple. The proof is very simple. Is due, the proof I know is due to Hermann Weyl. Okay. Very simple proof. Half a blackboard is enough. Okay. But it completely dominates the analysis of finite groups and again the same word, compact groups. Okay. So we will see how it goes. So that is my plan. But please, the audience is shrinking. So if you have questions, please come, either ask here or come to my office. I am in 325. I will be only too happy to make myself available.